Hello, this is Lisa Russick with the podcast We Are All Psychic. And today we have a really cool guest, and she will blow your mind, and you'll get that later. But Amy, with Dr. Amy, would you like to say hello?
Yes, hi. Thanks for having me on, Lisa.
I'm so happy that you're here, and would you like to answer our question? Do you think we're all psychic?
Yeah, I would say I don't know if everybody's psychic. I think that everybody is intuitive. Yes. And I think that is it's our birthright to stretch into it and grow into it. But that's how we all got here. So maybe not every single human, or maybe not every human in the same ways has the same amounts of intuition. But I think for sure we all have intuitive capacities. I think of psychic as being able to predict the future, and that's kind of it's a brand. It's an aspect or a flavor of intuition, because sometimes intuition is more of a body feeling or just knowing, or somehow people just end up at the right place at the right time and they don't even know what that means. There's all kinds of things that kind of get baked into intuition, medical intuition. There's so many different things.
Yes. I like the term energy work. That's my favorite. And you're right. Everyone has intuition and psychic. I like the name. We're all psychic. I just think it's catchy. I was like, yeah,
it's fun.
Catchy. It was in 2019. I wanted to be edgy.
Yeah.
It's not edgy anymore, but
Yeah.
And that's a great thing. That is a great thing. Is it not that it's not edgy to be doing a podcast asking people if they're psychic? I mean, if we think we're all psychic, that's just great. In 2020, nobody's really like, wow, what a weird question,
Yeah, I gotta say, when I used to be an absolute atheist and a hardcore skeptic. And it was a series of life events and kind of just learning along the way that there was more to it than all of that. But I would say my path on all of this began, my first spiritual awakening was 32 years ago. And when I became a practitioner and licensed and working with patients was about 23 years ago. And so back, let's say that long, 23 to 32 years ago, this was not a topic. Everybody officially was crazy if they were talking about this stuff.
You're so right.
It was super out there. There weren't many books on spirituality or energetics by comparison at all. There was no online, so there was definitely no online community. Podcasts didn't exist. So it was such a different world where, it's really... it really brought up, I think, a lot of fear for me to be having experiences. So I know that you said that a lot of your listeners might be early on for having experiences or just wanting to explore out into this world of the unseen being real. And then, if we add into the mix, not only the collective gaslighting that comes from our society, right? That none of this is real and anybody that thinks it must be crazy.
Absolutely.
But we also have the scary movies.
Yes, we have talked about that on the podcast. That's the example. Yeah. That's always what they do.
And what's true, and I mean, in fairness, a lot of that scary movie stuff is actually real out there, but it doesn't mean that people who are exploring into their intuition are not safe. And it really has everything to do with, if we have that inquiring minds want to know kind of attitude, if we're kind of a drama queen or drama rouser, I don't mean to just make it about women, but if we tend to end up in the wrong part of town or hanging out with the wrong people in physical form, we're more likely to run into problems in the energetic or other realms. But for people who are really honest and earnest in their path, it's a safe space. And especially if we know how to work with guardians and protectors and we have some basic kind of framing in place, intuition and exploring these kinds of skills and gifts is actually, it creates more safety rather than less.
And it gives you an inner security that is not, I didn't have before. And it's still something I'm on my search for, but I've got a lot more of it now. Inner security, right? Like I feel safe in my body, in my head, in my heart, in my house. I always had a lifetime of not really feeling safe, kind of. I'm just like that. I'm built that way. I have a disorder that keeps me in fight or flight all the time. So I'm always feeling unsafe. I do have to find that within, and everybody does their home. Maybe that's what I think I have to do, is find a home within. And so that's why I took the spiritual path. One of the reasons I had, and the health issues, I wanted to help, try to find ways to heal myself and, with that, and maybe other people too. you know?
Yeah.
And like I did learn Reiki just to do that. And listeners and watchers, this is a video on Spotify and YouTube. But Dr. Amy has something very interesting to tell all of you about. Well, tell us about your transitions. Where did you start and where did you end up?
Yeah, like I said, I was a scientist. Well, I was an atheist. I said I was studying neurosciences at age
Neuroscience.
18, right?
Wow.
And I was really
Yes.
convinced. It was in my freshman year of undergrad, and I was very convinced that if we understood neurotransmitters, we understood the human experience. So, in my own way, I was exploring consciousness. I just thought we could do it in a very biochemical level
Yeah.
alone. And I ended up having a massive spiritual awakening experience that I have since termed my Big Bang. And it was like the moment where this whole cosmos just like burst open inside of me. And I realized that there has to be a higher power. There has to be a God, and that science will never be able to explain even the phenomenon that was happening in my body in that moment and in my awareness in that moment, but certainly not everything that existed. It's like the lid on what I thought reality was got blown off in that moment. And no, it was not psychedelics. And no, it wasn't me trying to meditate, because again, I didn't believe in any of that. Nothing, meditation was not trending 32 years ago for the average 18-year-old. It was not a thing. So,
No.
so I was actually on an acupuncture table at that time. And I could hear voices, and I was floating and sinking and having a whole experience. I could trace the meridians. And so that really cracked me wide open. I finished my undergraduate degree, not an atheist, and actually studying shamanism and indigenous ways of being. I took a Native American dance class. I studied all about colonization and the decimation of the sacred ways of living and the understanding of the interconnectedness. And then I realized at the end of my undergrad that I didn't want to be a researching professor in the brain, because guess what? They were going to make me study the same topic for the rest of my life, and maybe even the same theory. And I was like, that sounds terrible. I thought I get to study anything I wanted. I'd be super bored, even though it's the brain. I mean, it's just too narrow.
They'd be having you do the same thing over and over with the brain.
Yeah, I don't want to try to prove myself to be right. Put a flag in the ground and then try to prove you're right for your whole career. It's like, but what if I'm not right? And what if I get study memory?
That would suck.
I know, right? And what if I want to, instead of study memory, I want to study how visual perception works more? If I want to study how, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, I went on a bit of a vision quest. I bought a one-way ticket to Costa Rica. And I was the only Caucasian woman that I saw for the first month. I ended up staying about 2.5 months. It was not, Costa Rica was not like a big tourist destination back then. It was dirt roads, and it was a wild place. So I got no message while I was in Costa Rica. I got a very strong message as soon as I went back. I went to acupuncture school, and that was like the message. It was a very, 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 very strong message. So I enrolled. I would say 70% of my classmates dropped out. It's an extremely rigorous program in the state of California, at least. And I never even doubted myself, because I knew that I had been led. And I passed the exam the first time, which most people don't. And then I was licensed. And then there I was in practice, still pretty young in the grand scheme of things, and realizing that I knew things about my patients that I shouldn't know.
Yeah, like listeners and watchers, if they're regulars, they know what a medical intuitive is. Are you a medical intuitive as well? Is that what you kind of discovered?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing back then. I'd never heard those terms.
I'd never heard it either until more. I think it was like 2016, the first time I ever heard that term.
Yeah, this is 2002. So it's like back in the stone ages of it, right? So
you're like, what am I?
I don't understand what's happening. But what I was doing was just setting my fears and my doubts and my insecurities and my am I making this up and whatever to the side. And I didn't let myself fall into that, because I felt like that would be selfish of me. This patient is coming here. Back in 2002, the people that came to an acupuncturist or somebody to work with Chinese medicine were desperate. They had been labeled with something. They had gone to every other MD type doctor.
That's why I went to one for the first time.
They're in desperate situations. And I'm like, this is, if I know that my presence, because I'd also been at this point already studying consciousness. I started studying consciousness at age 18, actually, with my grandpa, who was a teacher. So there weren't,
that's a crazy thing to study, isn't it?
So he was teaching me, and he said things like, the most powerful thing you can give anyone is your loving presence. And every time you walk through a doorway is potential for a new miracle. And are you looking for it?
I love your grandpa.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
It's
So
awesome.
when I saw a new patient walk through the door, I would just steady myself and say, you have no right to be insecure. You have no right to doubt in this person's miracle.
Yeah.
And I would not allow for myself internally, I wouldn't allow for my stomach to get tight. I wouldn't allow for myself to go down those pathways of doubt.
Yeah.
And so then I just started listening and being so present. It was like I was meditating with my eyes open, but my focus was on the client.
Yeah.
And so then that's how I started to just feel my way, know my way through. But it was a scary ride for me because I felt like maybe I was being reckless.
Probably had
like,
nobody to relate to, did you?
No, back then I really didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, my grandpa was teaching consciousness, but he didn't have any like healership kind
he didn't understand the energy healing or healing, and
not
he
much.
understand it, but he didn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I felt like I had a little bit of support there, but really, other than that, for the first couple of years, nobody to talk to.
Yeah.
And then I ended up meeting an incredible, lovely woman. She's since passed, one of my dearest friends and my mentor, Mary Rice. And she was an incredible licensed clinical social worker. So she was doing therapy of all different kinds and had been in practice for years and was just beyond, her normal, like the normal kind of training, and just an incredible woman. And so she started to not train me, but more double check my work. So we ended up sharing some clients in common because she would refer me along with a lot of other people. I got psychiatrists and psychologists and medical doctors' hardest cases. And so she sent me some of her really tough clients and we would talk them through. And she's like, you're on the right track. You're on the right track. And I really needed that because I hadn't been trained as a therapist. I mean,
that's what I was about to say. You got some training from all these different people. Then you had BFF, who was a therapy. And
that's right. That's right.
Psychology training, probably talking to
her.
A
bit. I got to know because I knew that I was practicing my own style, and so much of it was messages coming through, and me just being in my intuition, really, right? My heart and my intuition. And I feel, again, that loving presence was a gift for those folks, and I know it. And it was a gift for me to be in it. Huge gift. But, at the end of the day, I always want to come back to the Hippocratic Oath, first, do no harm. Right. And what if I'm doing something wrong? Like, what if I'm not on the right track? What ifs? And those were the what ifs.
If you don't mean to, it's different. If you do no harm, if you do it on purpose, that's kind of the thing, like what that means. I wouldn't take it to where you did it by accident. And
totally. But I didn't want to be reckless with what it was that I was stepping out into, because people were really opening up into, what was going on with them. Right. And so I didn't pretend to be a psychologist and I didn't hang my shingle that way, but at least I felt like I was assessing what was going on with people to the level of skill that, that she could. And I thought, okay, this is really good. And that was super important to me. And again, I was only in those doubts when I wasn't with my patients. When I was with them, I just knew what I knew. And later it was like, but wait, how did I know that? So I speak to that because I know, like you said, that so many people in the beginning phases of opening up their intuition, there can be such fear and such doubt about, but what if I'm wrong?
Oh, definitely. Oh, definitely. I might mess somebody up. What if I tell them the spirit says this and it's not what they said? And
right.
Especially with mediumship and even with tarot, what if he does love her and you tell him he doesn't love you?
Right.
He does love her. That's the worst one.
Yeah. Well, so I had to really learn to trust myself, and
it's really hard to do, to learn to trust myself. It was hard for me because I was kind of my emotional side was not accepted. Like growing up was, in the 80s and 90s, kind of hushed down with your emotions, women, especially in the South. Anyway, I was raised in Alabama mostly. I'm in Tennessee now. And it's like you couldn't even go to the library and find anything out, and I was just like, I am crazy. I was convinced I was crazy, and I still worked with it and just kept it to myself, and just kept my little crazy that I did.
Hey, I mean, even more credit to you for having these kind of things and these kind of conversations and these experiences that you're having in the Deep South, because that's a really intense place. There's a lot of very strict biblical ways of thinking, and
I call it slow to change.
Yeah.
That's like that's
Yeah.
very slow to change. It doesn't change very quickly, and they don't
Hmm.
want it to. Really, they're afraid of it.
I mean, even in the state of California, my mom told me that she wasn't allowed to have a checking account unless she had a cosigner until like 1980 or something. So either her father or
They
her
couldn't have.
husband.
Oh my
And
god!
women did not have their own credit score as a result of not having had any accounts just in their name. So we have had to come a long way. And I think that, same thing for, of course, for people of color and all kinds of things. It's an interesting world that we live in, but we look at, how we can be discriminated against for being different or for being a woman in this case. And I
Or
think
for being witchy.
yeah, for going
Now,
against the mainstream in any way,
yeah.
right? Like I might say something completely not out into woo land. I'm like, look, in traditional Chinese medicine, we would work with this in terms of, like start talking in terms of the five elements. I'm like, this is a fire condition. And, it sounds very, I don't know, poetic or like you said, witchy or whatever
But
people's
it
judgment.
would sound weird to people who are like the knee bone's connected to the thigh.
Right,
That's all the
exactly.
doctors know. I swear.
Yeah.
I've
So I feel
had
like,
problems with doctors. I do have some
yeah.
medical trauma,
I
from
do
growing
too.
up. I think a
Yeah,
lot of
I
us do.
do. Yeah, I do too. But I feel like that anything that goes against or questions, and even in this case, we're not necessarily trying to say that model is wrong. I think it's just that it's limited,
We can
right?
expand it.
Exactly.
Astrology and astronomy and the sciences have always, in the past, been together until the Catholic Church. Not remember. Maybe some other people did too, but I know the Catholic Church definitely in the olden times were like no. But I
Right.
mean, it was always they were taught together in ancient Greece and all our Western culture's heroes that we supposedly learned all our the basis of all our sciences. They learned astronomy and astrology together,
Together.
and yeah, stuff like that. It was a science classes you took. You had to know this stuff. It was like
Yeah,
part of college courses or something. That'd be great if they start doing that again because astrology is fascinating. It really
it
is. And it is
is.
a great psychology study too.
It is. Well, so when we look at all of that, who is it that I work with? So there's all sorts of people out there, but the people that I'm working with are running large multi-million, if not multi-billion dollar companies, or they've sold really large companies.
Well,
And they are the
explain
game.
what you do though, exactly to the listeners. You did it to me.
Okay,
They don't. I mean, I've read the email, guys, but
sure, sure.
it's hard
So
to
my
explain.
like I'm referring to here in the show, my professional training is I'm a doctor of Chinese medicine. But what I've ended up doing, I kind of went into spiritual guidance, as you can hear. But what I ended up saying is like, wait a minute, how do I help? How do I create the best leverage for change for positive in the world? And I can help the everyday person, and that's beautiful, and I love it. But I might be then impacting just their kids, their spouse. It's a certain size of imprint
Yeah,
or impact. If I change how a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company is operating internally, the schema with which he or she is framing the world and the reality, right? How
yeah,
kind they are, how much wisdom they move from. Now I'm making something even bigger happen because there's all the business transactions, there's their employees and their vendors, all of the stakeholders that are touched by that. And it's a bigger ripple of impact. So I
yeah.
started to work with the guidance that I was doing in terms of executive coaching. And that
Okay,
was a really big pivot.
yeah.
And I was doing things like working with whole leadership teams and sometimes the board at the same time. I could do conflict management. I could do strategic design, reorganizing a company if they needed to do a layoff or
Oh,
rebrand themselves and reposition themselves in the marketplace. I could solve
you
business
just store a lot
problems.
of stuff in there, man.
Yeah.
You put
So
it
I
all up
could,
in the Akashic records. That's what you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, basically, I'm a quick study to any area that I want to be an expert in, but I also know how to access it from an intuitive level. So you could put me in a room with 10 people that have been in a field for 30 years, and I'll hear or see things and know things that they
Yeah,
don't know per se, because it's like their nose is too close to the glass. You
I
know what
know
I
what
mean?
you
Like they're,
mean. I know what you
yeah.
mean, and it's real obvious to you, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
And so my ability to create strategic ladders and help companies to scale. I love scaling. I love mergers and acquisitions. I was whispered in my ear back in my 20s, you're going to do mergers and acquisitions. And I'm like, I don't even
What's
know what that is. I know. Turned out to be true, but so it shifted like that. And then about 14 years ago, 15 years ago, I met my colleague, Dr. Drew Pierson, who's a neuroscientist. At that point, he had been very deeply in the field of neurofeedback therapy for some time.
What's neurofeedback therapy exactly? What is
it? It's a wide range of medicine that includes basically this one premise, no matter how it's applied, which is the brain is measured in real time by electrodes down to the milliseconds with a lot of different measurements in this case, the way we do it. That information goes into a computer, and then the computer feeds back to the brain faster than the mind can perceive how it's doing, not through the wires, but through sights and sounds. So it's a feedback loop. Like imagine if you're an athlete and you'd never been able to like look down and see what your leg is doing, or like if you're in the gym and you're trying to have good form, but you don't have a mirror and you're like, oh, I didn't notice I was slouching and my arm is too far forward, right? So we don't have a great feedback mechanism on how our brain is working. We think we're either deficient or defective or broken, or we think that it's just some little black box and we have no idea what's going on in there. So what we do is we study and measure the EEG, which is the same as what they do at the research institutions.
I've had that done.
Have you really?
Yeah, I've had a stress test, a sound stress test with the.
Oh, with an EEG. Okay, got it. Probably sensory processing is a part of your.
They were testing me for. Well, I have a condition called hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and I've been diagnosed with ADD a million times. So every doctor has to retest me. So he did it that way, and I came back on my ADD. But the brain waves were my brain waves. He said that I think he said my theta and delta were different, and that showed an ADD response. And my waves were high.
Yeah, if your theta is high, in certain
it was my
ways,
gamma that was high, but my theta and delta, he said, went like opposite.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure what that means.
I don't know what that means in this case,
but just in general, a lot.
I might be saying it wrong.
It's okay. Yeah, no, it's tough to get the words right, honestly. But a lot of the times, ADHD does have to do with theta coming through the brain at the wrong area at the wrong time. So we always want a little bit of theta. Yeah. And if we have it in the right place, and this is something that I don't think all the neurologists understand, is if theta is in the right place and at the right frequency, it signifies that that person has a massive ability to transmit healing to other people.
Wow, that's really
cool.
I've heard a lot of people on the podcast say they get into theta, and then they can access their healing energies or whatever, abilities or whatever it is, or other skills too.
Yeah.
Just healing.
And it's true. There's a big portal there inside of theta. When theta is in a certain amplitude and moving in a certain way in a certain areas of the brain. But if it's in the wrong area of the brain, it's like, what's going on? There's a distractibility. And with hypermobile
Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, that causes all kinds of mental distortions. I do take, psychiatric medication, not as much as the same kind I used to. But it's like because of 30% of my body is connective tissue, and it's all different from anyone who doesn't have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So it causes, from what I understand, I don't know the brain like you do, but the linings would be weird. The lining in between my lobes would be all maybe possibly they're thinner. And I'm 50, but I have no wrinkles. Most people with HEDS don't get wrinkles until they're in their 60s or 70s. But they have a lot of back issues and stomach issues and stuff because the connective tissue you're trying to hold. That's why I have the fight or flight all the time, because my joints are trying to stay together.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. And honestly, I've heard, and I know I studied that syndrome years ago, but it would be one I would have to look up.
It's rare. Yes.
It's pretty rare. Yeah.
Well, they think it's rare, but they think it's not as rare as they used to, because it takes people don't usually get diagnosed until they're in their 40s. I wasn't diagnosed until I was 47, but I've been sick all my life.
Oh, wow.
And I have the comorbidities, but, I was in Alabama and they didn't know what that was. POTS, MCAS.
Right.
It's just I didn't get diagnosed correctly. So
it's tough. Even things like when people say that they go into theta or that they have ADHD or whatever, it's actually really hard to know that unless you look at the brain. I mean, there is a DSM manual that tells people if you have this set of symptoms, then you have this. But a lot of the times those are just diagnoses based on your best guess
Your
based on how
questions
they
and answers,
look.
and anybody can answer anything they want. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
But
just,
there's a lot of ways to end up with distractibility. It could be
yes,
rumination that creates distractibility, right? They're trying to focus on,
yes.
let's say, school, but they're worried about what their friend said and they can't stop thinking about what their
Yes,
friend said.
that could be a totally different thing
It's a
than
totally
ADD.
different
Yeah.
thing than theta wandering through,
Yeah,
right? That's a
that's what
hot
I feel like
spot.
I have is the thing, because I do just like suddenly just go
I would have, yeah.
shiny, or I just forget what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. All the podcast is full of examples of me like being in the middle of saying something. I'm like, and I do
Yeah.
take my medication. It still happens.
Right. Well,
So
the brain is very complex, and then you add into it something like this, the syndrome that you've been given the name of. I like to call it that.
Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, EDS. It's easier to
Yeah,
say
yeah,
HEDS. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
shorter
But
and have
it's
weird words.
then it can add more complexity for sure. But
Yeah.
anyway, so neurofeedback therapy is really incredible. On
I'm
one level,
wondering
it's
what it
really
is
basic,
exactly.
right?
Yes.
So it's like if you have I have a really lovely dog, and when I was training her, when she does the right thing, I'm like, oh, good job, and I give her pets or a treat,
Yeah.
and if she's not doing the right thing, I'm not necessarily yelling at her. Let's say she's pulling a little bit on the leash, maybe I'm not even doing anything, but I'm waiting for her to do it right, would be kind of how neurofeedback works. Now,
Okay.
when I was
Okay.
training my puppy, I would actually give a little tug on her leash and say, tell her to not walk so fast, right? But in this case, it seems very simple. Like when the
Yeah.
brain is doing the right thing, you give it a reward,
Yes.
right? And you either hear something or you hear something and see something on the screen. But the mind is not saying, oh, see, I heard that thing. That must have meant that my brain was. That's not how it works. Actually, the brain is putting it's the input from the brain is going into the computer, and then the sight or the sound is being perceived
Yeah.
faster than the mind can perceive it.
Okay. That's so
So it's really amazing because it's that sense too of highest self is what is running the show, right? Highest self,
It
like
kind
we
of
don't
proves
have to
it.
know
It
all
kind
the
of proves
answers.
it. Yeah,
Exactly.
because our brain, like I think I've read somewhere, when I was studying in college, I did study some biochemistry and stuff. I started in chemical engineering, and I couldn't do the math, so I went a little. I did do some microbiology. I really liked that. But I liked playing rock and roll better. So I went to become an English major. I just
Got
like it.
it.
I really love the sciences and I kept up studying it. Um, I found that like what I've read a long time, I mean, it wasn't too long ago, but shoot, there it goes. See, it's happening right now. It just went away. It went boop.
Yeah.
I had a
And it
point.
can be that can be ADHD, but it can also be a short-term memory thing. Like we
I've
want
always
to kind
been
of get
like
in
this all
there.
my life, though. I don't know. It could be a
Hmm.
short-term memory thing, but I mean, I've always been forgetful. Like my
Yeah.
mother would yell at me for not unloading the dishwasher 5 minutes after she told me because I kept forgetting, like over and over and over. She would tell me like 5 times, and I'm like, I really forgot. And she's like, no, you didn't. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
5 times. I forgot. I swear I did. I really
Yeah.
did. Don't believe me. Like, you don't forget something 5 times. Like, I really did. But, it might be, that might be a memory issue too
Yeah.
that I have. I don't know. But,
Yeah.
and I do
Yeah.
have seizures. So, there's times when like I can just kind of zone out and not know it. And the only time I live alone. So the only time I can tell if I have one is if there's a glare in my eye and I'm suddenly somewhere else in the apartment.
Mm.
Hey, we're getting way off topic, but so I'm really curious. Is this neuro linguistic programming kind of what you do, or is it how do you do it? Is it with your energy that you do it, or with your
No, I
words
mean the
you
brain
do,
stuff is
or
just brain stuff. I mean, it is the computer. The computer is
how does it
it's
help people?
extremely sophisticated hardware and software. So it can do a wide range of things. So it can treat things like stress and anxiety or sleep problems or memory problems or I mean, you name it, and there's usually a treatment for it. A lot of what we focus on in our programs are because we are working with high performers that are running big empires usually.
Yeah, and
We're
got
bringing
big
them
brains,
through.
I guess, to go
Yeah,
with
exactly. They're
it.
usually pretty strong in a lot of areas, but they want to be better leaders. They want to lead from a
Huh,
deeper place of wisdom. They
that's
want to
cool.
dial up they want to dial up their intuition. They want to have better connections. Sometimes they've sacrificed maybe their relationship with their spouse or their kids because they don't have the bandwidth to push like the way they do at work and then come home and be soft and warm and connected.
That makes sense.
So we help them to do things like that. They may have a little sleep thing they want us to help with, something like that. And then a lot of the times what ends up happening, though, is that people will drop into a deeper state of intuition and have a better sense because they can feel themselves. They can feel their own body. They can feel their own feelings. They're not afraid of their feelings, and they can actually better, I'll say, manage their feelings, but that's not really the word of it. It's like they have more capacity. They're not struggling, and so
especially
they can
a lot of those people in those positions are men, or some women, but they were like kind of emotionally neglected and taught love was to be earned. Those types are. And a lot of the time, not all the time. So like to get reward, like you're talking about, really would help, but also to get into that place where they're not stressed to get reward, to achieve. And that's all they've known is to achieve, to get the love. And then they can just feel the love without having to achieve for the first time, or maybe once in a while. And then it's right there. It's like,
and just feel feelings, because typically men are only allowed anger. Or shut down. Yeah. No, it's its own special torture. What it is that men have been put through in that way. I think we were talking earlier about the difficulty of being a woman, but there's, I think every walk has its own challenge for sure. Yeah. So, so we have a program where we have a lot of different types of neurofeedback therapy, the most advanced hardware, software, and methodology in the world. And the guy that I work with I named him the Wizard, which works really well on this show for this audience, because he is beyond brilliant and sees, I'll say, between the lines. In EEG, when you look at the raw data, is a bunch of squiggly lines on a page, 19 of them, and he can see between those lines, is the way I like to say it. He can see whispers and inklings of spiritual gifts. He can understand things that even really experienced neuroscientists and clinicians don't see and don't know. And a lot of that comes because he studied monks of many, many years. He studied, top performing fighter pilots. He studied, like all kinds of interesting, really special brains in that regard. But he's also worked with really severe autism and ADHD and, everything kind of in between. So he understands like the real spectrum and gamut of how all of those things present themselves in the brain and how to support them coming into their full, the full expression of that person. But he's also quite a cosmonaut. Like he could be having this, I don't know about exactly this conversation. It'd be different if he was here, because he's a different person, but he could drop into the conversation about mysticism and energy and be as fluent as we are in it as well. So it's really incredible to be able to work alongside him with those. And so I'm just weaving a lot of those things that I had early on in my practice and some of those skills that have continued to hone, so that people are having massive energetic experiences, often to the point where they have a feeling of being in an altered state without any of the neurofeedback. So just in sitting and working with me, when I open up the field of energy, it's so intense and so powerful that they have a very, very palpable experience, and looks like we're just sitting and talking. So we weave all of that together into that's one of our offerings.
That is amazing.
People come on site for 5 days.
Do people come to you to do this in that location? Where's the location?
Northern California.
And where can they find out about this? Like, what's your website?
It's holonexperience.com. HOLON experience.com. And the program that I'm describing, we have, it would be the very maximum is 30 people per year through it. It's a very small number of people. So I also have my one-on-one coaching and guidance practice that I have, still helping companies to scale, still helping to build the empires of those that are working.
I love that. And the best thing I've heard you say, you said so many wonderful things, but just to hear you say that there are great thought leaders that want to open up to their spiritual side.
Oh, yeah.
You have met them and you're helping them do that. That makes me so happy that there are leaders in the world wanting that.
Oh, yeah.
That just makes my whole day. It's been a weird day.
No, for sure. It's, there's a lot of openness. There's a lot of movement in that direction. The psychedelic movement has helped quite a lot to open up a lot of people's minds quickly.
Yes.
And so maybe what they thought was just going to be something kind of like all their friends are doing it, they'll go try it. But luckily they maybe went and sat in an intentional environment and had a powerful experience. And now they're like, whoa, I think there's more to life. So some of them are opened up because of that, but I would say that's more so in the last 5 years. COVID really, I think, instigated a lot of that, the psychedelic
you
movement.
Bring out people's individuality and show it to them and say, this is beautiful.
That's right. That's right. Here is you as your unique soul. Mm-hmm. That's exactly
and that's all they needed to hear. It's like you catch them in that time where they can accept it and they can't say no and reject it. And then it's just the truth. Is that kind of what you do? Is that kind of like a short?
That's a very good description. Like when I was saying to, like, people get hung up on all the words. Well, are you a medical intuitive or what were you, are you doing Reiki? I'm like, I don't know what I was doing.
That's so true. Not so many of us don't know what we're doing.
It doesn't come through. Exactly. And you can't even necessarily say what sense you're using, because clairvoyance has a feeling and sometimes a sound goes with it, or sometimes you just hear a sound or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So it's all a little bit less divvied up than we would like to think. But when I describe what I started with, it wasn't really therapy. It was more seeing deeply into someone, to who they are at a soul level,
and appreciating it and liking it and loving it and caring for it. What's in, if you see that soul, you can't help but love it, right?
I know.
You can't. You see the best. You see that beauty. And you can't help but just be like, oh, you're beautiful. I love you. I have a problem with that. I kind of see that in everybody, and I don't always see the problems. Like I see like that best of them, but I don't see where they are. I just see where they can be sometimes when I want to, if you know what I mean.
Right. No, I get that.
In relationships, friendships, stuff like that, and I do get taken advantage of for having that kind of perspective sometimes, but I'd rather have that perspective and get taken advantage of than not have it. Because it gives me a lot of peace and it gives me a lot of happiness to see that beauty in people. Even like if someone is scaring me and I can still see that in there,
Right.
And maybe that
can be the thing that disarms them when somebody's in a really amped up state of anger or whatever, or fear or whatever it is. If you can still see that part of them, their real essence, sometimes that's the through line that helps them to calm their nervous system and to drop back into that. So that's a powerful thing. But yeah, I mean, what it's like to, instead of thinking in terms of, oh, this is a health problem, this is a business problem, this is a marital problem, this is a whatever problem, what is the message and how do you align to the truth of who you are? Why is this serving you? How does this serve you? And then when we look to that, that's how we shift the things. Like I could get extremely fast results in any of those areas as long as I can find what it is that's misaligned at that deepest level. So a lot of people don't know themselves even at a topical level because they're afraid, they've been shamed. They
don't want to look anymore because they have to look at those things, they think, or they will.
Yeah, it can be hard. And I get that, right? There's a lot of things that we have to be with to be able to be with ourselves. But in that deeper level, deeper than the you that's showing up in this lifetime and the me that's showing up in this lifetime, like, yeah, we're currently wrapped in these kinds of bodies when we had those kinds of stories, and important, but it actually has almost nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
Right. And when we slip into that understanding, when we can zoom out rather than be so pressed up against the glass with our nose about everything that's wrong or who we think we are, or that's just how I am, or it's like those are personalities.
Sounds like you really understand the A-type personality too.
Oh yeah. Well, I am.
And I was just talking about that on a podcast recently, they and B-type, because you've worked with them, and they a lot of people who are so ambitious and driven, they're so hard on themselves,
That's right.
And then to have someone just show them a mirror and then looking at like whatever that metaphoric mirror is, and they're showing you what they see, that beautiful soul, and that's what it sounds like you're doing in your work.
Yeah, and also not candy coating, because if I see some stuff that they don't like, I'll be the first to tell them also, but I do it with love.
You do see where they are too.
Oh yeah,
that's wonderful.
Yeah, I have trained myself to see all of it because that's what serves, and that
is what serves.
Yeah, and sometimes these people have built an empire around themselves, and I'm the only person that will tell them the truth.
Yeah. They
And
got all the
they
yes
come to
men.
me because they know I will. And
Yeah.
because I can deliver it in such a way where it's not tearing them down. It's
Yeah.
clearly there to serve
They're up
and
in this
have an
competitive
option
atmosphere. Everyone wants to tear them down slightly, big time anyway, probably,
in a lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they're just afraid to even speak.
Oh,
So, and I think a lot of leaders that can lead to a lot of loneliness because they don't feel like they have, close friends inside of the work environments that they work
'cause they're
in.
working all the dang time.
They do, but also they don't feel like they can open up to the people around them, right?
Very
Like there's
true.
a lot of fear or there's
Yeah.
politics or there's whatever.
Politics. That's
So
like cutthroat. That's what I was thinking of. Like a lot of those businesses are very cutthroat. And if you make one mistake, there's a snake somewhere watching. Not a good snake.
yeah, there
Like a
can
bad
be. Can
snake.
be. And there's also a lot of really positive environments and a lot of
Yeah.
amazing people. And
Yeah.
those are the ones that
Sounds
I'm
like you're
blessed to work
helping
with.
people create those atmospheres.
Yeah,
So that's
totally.
really cool that they want them.
Yeah,
Instead
definitely.
of being dictators and stuff. And that's just great that they're looking for you. I'm so happy about that. Oh my gosh. That's just
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, it
So,
is
what did you
great.
say the website was again? Do you have anywhere else that listeners can find you? Social media
Um,
or anything? Or
I'm not really strong anywhere in all of the socials yet. I'm sure it's coming. I'm working on getting YouTube and Instagram and all of those kind of things rolling.
okay.
But for now, the best place is holonexperience.com, and people can learn more there. And if you send in a contact us form or a program application form, you can get on the mailing list. And then we're going to be launching a bunch of offerings that are more available. My top tier coaching and this very, very elite neurofeedback intensive is expensive and not
Yeah.
available to everyone. But what we're doing is we're in the process of creating things that are available to many, many more people because my heart is to help everybody. I'm about the leverage, like I said,
Yeah.
because I want the greater good to ripple out massively that's coming for this. But I also want to be able to help, people from all walks of life, all stages, all
Absolutely.
income brackets. I
Yeah.
don't want to
Well, you're here
differentiate
on
in
this
that regard.
podcast talking about it. Bring
That's
some
right.
time. You could be up
That's right.
like 5,000 an hour or something
Yeah,
if you felt like it.
yeah.
I mean, you could, but you're on a
Yeah.
podcast sharing this knowledge with our listeners.
And
So I think that's just amazing. And thank you for that.
yeah, you're
I really do
welcome.
appreciate you coming on, Dr. Amy.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
I want to thank my sponsor, Everclear, at this time. Everclear is an advice app and website. It's called everclear.com and Everclear Advice app in the Google Play Store and the Apple Store. And you can get advice from advisors who are psychics and empaths, so you can get the clarity you need to create the life you deserve. And I'm an advisor on there under the name Lisa Russick. And Dr. Amy, lastly, I would love to ask you for some advice for our watchers and listeners. Maybe some of them have that like understanding too that we're talking about. Like they see that good, but they're like you and they can see where people are. Not necessarily where they are spiritually, but where they are kind of, when you describe it, it sounds like you know where people are stuck spiritual, psychologically, and physically, all three together. And maybe emotionally if they want to go there. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
you force it on them. I just don't
No,
feel like you force the emotional.
no,
And
I don't force
it's like
anyone.
I feel like that's something that I feel like good about myself after this podcast, just being like talking with you. I feel
Good.
calmer. I feel aligned. I don't know if that's something
Good.
you try to do with your energy. I feel like a lot calmer and more aligned. I was not in a great mood today, but good things happened.
That's right.
I just wasn't feeling it. And I looked up the astrology influences and it was like, that's what's going on.
Yeah.
For it
Yeah.
could be an influence. I like that kind of
Totally.
stuff. It cheered me up for a minute, but your presence really did level me out. And I know I'm gonna have a good time the rest of the night mixing this and just,
Good.
but some advice, I guess, facing if let's say they're like that and maybe they're taking on a role like you've taken on and they're facing their first big head honcho big
Mm.
guy, maybe they're intimidated. They probably aren't. But let's say he thinks they're intimidated. How would you handle that? How would you explain to this person how to handle that first person who's just testing them and seeing if they really got it and all that stuff? Because they're used to doing that. That's what they have to do, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of that that can be out there. Not
Yeah,
always.
not always.
I
No.
would say that for people to remember that they're a timeless soul in an endless journey, and they're currently spinning around on a little blue dot called Mama Earth, That's been here for a
Take it
really long
easy.
time. That's right. And the
And
zoom out of all of that, like this person is, important in some regards, and they're just another person. I
that's so
guess
true.
working with the super elite in the ways that I have, I can say they all put on their pants the same way. They all
Yeah.
worry if they're good enough.
Yeah.
Everybody's got the same
That's
challenges.
so true.
And
Yeah.
just to be able to be with that and claim your space, claim those 2 feet on the ground or that chair that you're sitting in, and just be like, yes, I deserve good things. I deserve to be in this room right now. And this guy, if he's or gal or whoever it is, if they're doing these kinds of displays, it's coming from fear. And
It
how do
is.
I find compassion? And how do I zoom out to be able to just stay in the state of wonder about how that got to be for them and continue to be present? Because
Yeah.
if somebody can be present, it's not important that you know the right answer per se. It's not, if they know that they're being really intimidating, they're sometimes just checking to see if they can rock you.
Yeah.
And so
That's what
if
I
you can
meant. That's what
stay
I meant. See how
calm
do you do
inside
it?
of it,
Yeah.
if you can
Okay.
stay calm inside of that, but not just be calm, but like zoom out. Also, something that listeners might really like is at the holonexperience.com website, there's a free download of it's a meditative type practice, but it's actually working with the energy anatomy. And if you work with the tailbone and the breath and the way that I describe in that recording, you can instantly change your reality, instantly change how your body is feeling, how your emotions are feeling.
Wow.
And
I
you
will
don't
try
have to
that.
close your eyes, and it takes you just maybe, I mean, if you get practiced, you start to change yourself within one breath.
Ooh.
And it's a really powerful tool, and it changes people's lives.
Ah.
And so that's something that I brought with me to some of those more intense situations for sure in my
Yeah.
life, and that I live and practice every day.
And my cat Gandalf approves of this because
Yeah.
he's been gone the whole podcast, and now he's all meow, 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 meow.
Yep.
He's
Yep.
like, "This is exciting news, mommy. You've got to do this." I will,
Yeah.
and I will. Thank you so much for that.
You're
And I'm sure the
welcome.
listeners, you guys will check that out. That sounds fascinating. I'm definitely gonna check that out, and it'll be in the
Good.
description, guys. And lastly, I guess listeners and watchers, I love you, Amy. Do you love the listeners and watchers?
Always.
Always love the listeners and watchers. We love you guys so much. And everybody have a wonderful time wherever you may be. And Gandalf says, meow. And thank you so much again, Amy.
You're welcome.
Everybody have a great time. Peace out. Bye.